Hello there. So I'm reading this book, Transcending the Level of the Ganges. It was written by David Hawkins. And today I'm feeling like a very apathy. So basically in this book he calibrates the different state of consciousness associated with the emotions and with different things. I'm going to read it. I'm still being terrible explaining English, so I'm improving. That's why I'm doing the videos. So today I want to read this chapter 3 from this book to, of course, continue improving my English, my pronunciation, and also to let it go this apathy state that I'm feeling today. The level of apathy is characterized by neglect, indifference, poverty, and in more severe degrees by despair and hopelessness. Terrible state. It is exactly how I feel. The world and the future look bleak and pathos in the theme of life. It is a state of helplessness, and its victims need it in every way. Lack not only resources but also the energy to take advantage of what may be available. Unless external energy is supplied by caregivers, that through passive suicide can result. I'm not going to suicide myself, so impossible. I love my life and I love be alive, so there is no way. Maybe it's not the real level or state of conscience that I'm experiencing in this moment. But let's go. Without the will to live, the hopeless stare blankly, unresponsive to stimuli. I don't feel that way at all. The eyes stop tracking, and there is insufficient energy left to even slow preferred food. This is the level of the homeless. I'm not a homeless. And the directives of society. It is also the fate of many of the aged and others who become isolated by chronic or progressive disease. The apathic are dependent. They are heavy and feel like a burden to those around them. They represent the human expression of the tamas of the classic Hindu gunas, of the trilogy of tamas, rajas, and sattva that are innate to the world. Society often lacks sufficiency. Motivation to be of any real help to cultures or individuals that at this level of seems and sees them as drain of resource. This is the level of the streets of Calcutta, where only the saintly, such as Mother Teresa, of her followers dared to treat. Clinical state. Unrecognizing apathy in the form or inertia is at the core of many social as well as personal problems. The failure of the bureaucratic government agency to take care and assume responsibility can also result in mass catastrophes. Example abound of failure to act or functions such as unpreparedness prior to Pearl Harbor, being blindsided in the Korean War, warning prior to 9/11 in other Al-Qaeda attacks, lack of action after the USS Cole bombing, unpreparedness of the military for the Iraqi War, belated response to Hurricane Katrina, and others. Sorry, that paragraph was extremely difficult for me. So sorry. Apathy indicates very low availability of energy and interest. This can be endemic in cultures and regions, including metropolitan and poverty areas, like city, or indifference may be culturally carried by even subtle means. What they use is an infection attitude. Sloth is included as one of the 7 deadly sins because it is a rejection of God's gift of life and is self-indulgence without love. In this state, there is no concern for the welfare of others or even appropriate concerns for the quality of one's own life. I said in the beginning of the video that I love my life. The same attitude is projected onto God, who is seen as rejecting, unable, and uncaring. The waste of one's life results in a concept of God as indifferent, condemning, and unable. This leads to hopelessness and pessimism. Apathy is often the basis for passivity and self-condemnation, resulting in low self-esteem and self-image. The feeling of worthlessness reinforces negative social attitudes and behavior that result in poverty and low quality of life. Hopelessness leads to further decline, which is then used as a saving rationalization. The core is that responsibility is rejected and replaced by a chronic victim mentality that seeks to avoid the real issues by projecting the supposed source to the external world, which is then comfortably blamed as being the cause. The dualistic split of victim-perpetrator is further reinforced by current postmodern relativistic social theory that perpetuates the illusion. Poor parenting is relatively influential in establishing early life behavioral pattern in which there are a lack of love and ordinary motivation behavioral factors. This results in an inadequate inner reward system and low self-esteem, and discouragement compounds the problem. Although the ego ideal may develop and heroic figures may be admired, The inner conviction is that the idealized side is not obtainable due to the hopelessness and skepticism. The normal person receives some recognition for effort in trying, even if they fail. The hopeless person sees no point in even attempting a higher level of functioning. The energy attractor field of apathy draws to it other expression in the same low energy, the well-known broken window principle, which result in an overall depressing social milieu that breeds crime and poverty. The apathic condition indicates impairment that result in resorting to face saving excuses. It may also result in hypochondriasis, chronic invalidism, and a self-centered personality that is passive, non-functional, and seeks dependent relationship. The comfort of drugs may also provide escape from the inner barrenness. When the temporary drug-induced euphoria subsides, the return of the downside becomes intolerable. The drug's dependence is not just an addiction but also a lifestyle. The self-perpetuating downward spiral may result in desperate attempts to survive, including clinging to abusive relationships. Self-condemnation is projected onto God and society, which are therefore blamed for the condition. Transcending the level of apathy. Apathetic moments or even periods of time may occur temporarily in most anyone's life in which there are times of doubts and feelings of discouragement. The lifestyle itself becomes a denial of the value of life, of divinity as its source. Sorry for my pronunciation. I'm not going to stop. I will continue even if I make mistake. The only way out of these impasses I want to cry for this. Come on. I really want to cry. Let's go. The only way out of this impasse is via the will. I'm not going to stop, come on. Maybe I am transcending this level. Let's go. The only way out of these impasses is via the will, which alone has the potential power to compensate for the lack of intraphysic energy. I'm crying. The will, which is spiritual in nature and origin, is not to be confused with willpower, which is only mental and psychological. In an apathetic state, the personal will is weak and ineffectual. This can be transcended only by the invocation of divine will. which calibrate at 850 and has the power of regeneration. While the ego self routinely takes credit for survival, its true source is the presence of divinity as self. It is only because of the self that the ego is capable of being self sustaining. It is only a recipient of life energy and not its origin, as it believes. Divine entity may or may not result in a desired outcome because to the self, adversity or even physical death may be the only way to defeat the ego. To the self-surrender of the personal worth of the physical body may be the requisite for the transformation of the soul. Thus, in this seeming paradox, defeat to the ego mind-body entity is in actuality the sacrifice of the temporary for the permanent evolution of the soul, and therefore karmic gain, while the person will only calibrate at the same level as does the person extremely weak in the state of apathy at approximately 30. So the apathy calibrate in a low level. I think it is 30, 50. The will calibrate at a very powerful level. These are the conditions that illustrate the dynamic force behind the truth that man's calamity is God's opportunity. The invitation to the divinity, for example, is well demonstrated by the 12-step groups in which the initial step, paraphrased, are: we admitted we were powerless over our life, and only God could relieve us of our insanity. By the admission of personal powerlessness and turning away from the ego, the decision is made to turn one's life over to God. This is followed by a fearless moral inventory and then seeking guidance through prayer and the establishment of a daily spiritual life pattern. This information is from 12 States and 12 Tradition, 1996. The above process has been proven to bring about recovery from a whole gamut of very difficult, hopelessness human problem in millions of people worldwide for many decades. The transformation that result are often described as a miracle because of their degree. This simple program originally began in Oxford, England, and was brought to the United States by Rowland. The hopeless patient of the famous Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Jung, whose own honesty helped Rowland hit bottom when he said to him, "Alas, neither I nor my art can help you, and your only hope is to throw yourself wholeheartedly into a spiritual program. For it is recorded in history that although rare, recoveries have occurred under those circumstances." Eventually, Rowland's dramatic recovery set the paradigm for what is now the worldwide 12-step movement as well as other faith-based programs, and has even been effective in 35% of cases of extremely hardened chronic criminals. Apathy is at the core of many seamless, hopeless conditions that are beyond the capacity of the human will or society to resolve. Recovery from any of these apathic conditions is strengthened by participation in spiritual groups because their overall energy calibrates at 540, the level of unconditional love, which is rare in the overall population. Only 0.4%. So, nothing. Another non-spiritual but strong program devoted to recovering and improving one's life by strictly accepting responsibility was demonstrated by Herald Seminars training at calibration level 400. The technique was one of constant confrontation with irresponsibility and the canceling of all excuses, rationalization, and evasion of it. So, the calibration is a method that David Hawkins uses to calibrate anything. There is a technique, is a method. He used the kinesiology. I don't know if I'm saying okay, but I can explain it in another video properly, all the technique properly, so you can understand. But basically it's a demonstration about what is true and what is false. Whatever it calibrates over 200, it's true, and it's from the power, from the divinity. And wherever it calibrates below 200, it's false, and it's by force, and it's close to the death. So that is a quick explanation. In what is seen as apathy, there is actually a strong internal resistance as a sublime disguised pride and ego themes describe as I can't or I don't want to. The persistence of the ego is so strong that it frequently takes a mass catastrophe such as war or an earthquake to confront it to the degree that it's willing to surrender. Thus, by collective karma, whole groups are drawn to a specific situation that may appear as catastrophic yet hold unseen karmic benefit. Let's see this part. I have many pages, so let's go for this one. Apathy in the normal individual. Periods of apathy are recurrent in almost everyone's life as a temporary and transitory phenomenon. To the spiritual-oriented, the self-searching to the core of the phenomenon to understand its origins result in a positive outcome. Apathy in the normal individual usually applies to certain areas of life, that had been neglected, resisted, or for which one has refused responsibility. These also expressed as aversions and attraction. This is another important things to pay attention. He talks a lot about the aversions and the attractions. Upon investigation, turn out to be based on illusions. Almost any resistant aversion or illusion can be dissolved by complete and total surrender and the willingness to relinquish illusory goals. Operationally, this can be described as surrendering the liner, the ego, to the no-liner, the divinity. Let's go for this one. Apathy versus motivation. Human behaviors can result from being instinctually driven or alternately from being attracted to or motivated by positive, idealized goals. The Freudian ego ideal is the internalization of admired quality achievement or heroic figures that are inspirational and represent possibilities for growth and development. I'm gonna cry again. Gosh. The admired figures are selected in accord with the individual's prevailing level of consciousness, so that each level characteristically tends to have its commensurate inspirational leaders. Lack of such an internalized figure can stem from poor or absent parenting, or lack of self-esteem or sense of personal worth that leads to expectation of failure, pessimism, and the amotivational syndrome. The building of self-confidence is usually best done stepwise, in small increments aided by motivational encouragement. A negative self-image may be accompanied by past failure or criticism by peers or parental figures, resulting in attitude of I can't or I am not worth it. The old adage, if at first you don't succeed, try again, falls on deaf ears as apathy is usually defended with many rationalization excuses and justification in order to avoid shame. In some expressions, apathy may be consequent to clinical depression due to faulty brain chemistry that requires antidepressant to correct the imbalance, at least temporarily, in order to recognize the psyche. The classic counterbalance to apathy and negative self-image are faith, hope, and charity. The benefit of helping others is very well demonstrated throughout society, whatever it comes about through choice, inspiration, or even coercion. Often, for those who have fallen very low, even just caring for animals can serve as a very good start. as it's demonstrated by the seeing eyes dog training programs that had been very successful in population of chronic recidivist prison inmates, some of whom even choose to stay on past their discouraged date to complete their work with their assigned dogs. Apathetic geriatric patients pick up if the nursing home provides pet dogs. Current research indicates that the mere owning of the pet decreases the level of depression and hypertension, and has a positive effect on health overall. Therefore, caring for others, living beings, is therapeutic, as is exhibited by hopeless alcoholics when they begin to help newcomers, and dejected athletes recover from defeatist attitude by the sheer act of encouraging other team members. In spiritual work, also, group participation. I lost. In spiritual work, also, group participation remotivate as a consequence of the group's intrinsic spiritual energy. Those ministerial organizations serve as great purpose, as do mentors, trainers, motivational speakers, humanitarian organizations, the clergy, and inspirational teachers. The average person usually has some limited areas of apathy, at least for periods of time. That areas of neglected due to the economy of available time and energy or interest. Spiritual apathy is also quite common as an expression of avoidance and reluctance to face inner conflicts that thereby become a deterrent to progress and growth. These delays can be expedited and also traversed by prayer and the inspirations innate to activate spiritual groups. Motivation is aided and augmented in almost any human endeavors by having a mentor, confidant, or trusted friend. Apathy is often the result of isolation, and cured by involvement in and the activity of positive relationship that provides a source of caringness. Apathy is indicated of the absence of love, which is its most powerful antidote. This may be situational. I don't know. Or the consequence of rejecting love due to egocentricity or very low self-esteem resulting from lack of love and nurturance in early life. All the problems becomes in our early life. To choose love for God, they are not problem. They are opportunity to expand our conscious. To choose love for God, activate the love of God by prayer and worship. Therefore, despondency may the very trigger that opens the door to the emergence of spiritual interest and progress. Many have found God only in the pits of hopelessness and despair. The ego is so strong that sometimes only several hitting buttons is a strong enough stimulus to activate the willingness to surrender allegiance to the ego's domination. When activated, the spirit within is renewed and apathy is replaced by hope. To pray sincerely may be the only option available to work through some severe or prolonged period of karmic debts. It is sometimes referred to as the test of faith, which is best traversed by conviction that this too shall pass, and they also serve who stand and wait. Apathy, like any other obstacle on the evolutionary path, is resolved by acceptances rather than denial. Spiritual apathy can be helped by re-exposure to basic spiritual truths, such as provided by scripture or spiritual literature, reflection and meditation on verses such as those in 91st Psalm or others' favorite passage, often reactive inspiration because of their innate high conscious calibration. Re-inspiration is also often consequent to repeating favorite prayers, hymns, or the playing of classical musical is beautiful surrounding. Music of high calibration presents an energy field directly that bypasses the intelligent and negative mentation. Music that calibrates over 500 has an uplifting effect. It can vary all the way from the score of the river dance to classic music, to stirring scare of the bagpipes of the Scottish Black Watch, or even the irresistible music of the Bee Gees. Transient apathy can indicate resistance to facing some interpersonal defect, which is most rapidly overcome by direct admission and acceptance. This reactive spiritual movement, instead of being stool-filled, even avoidance can be countered by accepting the fact that it is currently operating, avoiding the denial of denial. One can choose to avoid an issue consciously instead of being at the effect of it through avoidance. This alternative opens the option to just not deal with the issues currently and choose instead to take a vacation from it via what could be viewed a therapy escapism, such as going to movie, taking vacation, going on short trip. Acceptance by conscious choice has a different consequence from unconscious denial. Self-care is an integrous intention when done consciously. It is an exercise in developing self-love, especially if It is dedicated to God. It is sometimes necessary to rest and recuperate in order to become rejuvenated. This is one of the functions of play and recreation that serves retrenchment rather than just self-indulgence. Okay. I think I only read like a 5 or 6 page, and I feel super tired. I feel here. Sorry, I apologize for that. Okay, I'm going to finish the video here. So if you stay until the end, thank you very much. I'm going to do more of this because I like it, and I think it's very useful information. Okay, I don't have too much to say. Thank you very much, and I see you in another video about transcending the level of the conscience. Thank you, bye bye.